rests lightly on his shoulders. It is not yet the ornate lamellar plating of later eras, but functional, tied with cords of faded blue. On his waist, he carries both his sword and a small pouch of dried rice. He will patrol the border of the province today, walking the wooded paths between distant farmsteads. He walks not with urgency, but with purpose. The path is known to him, each bend in the trail, each bird call from the trees. His footsteps make no sound against the moss-covered earth. A deer watches him from between the pines, unmoving. The forest holds its breath, as if acknowledging the calm authority of the figure now passing through it. In these moments, the samurai does not feel separate from nature, he is part of it. The rustle of wind through the tall cedars, the crunch of a dry branch beneath his foot, the whisper of leaves overhead, all become part of a quiet, living symphony. At midday, Takashi stops near a creek. He kneels, unstraps his pouch, and eats simply. Rice, a few pickled vegetables, and a sip of water. He watches the dragonflies skimming over the surface of the water. Time stretches. There is no need to hurry. No battle waits at the end of the road, only duty, and the quiet satisfaction of having walked the path. Not all warriors seek war. Indeed, in these early centuries, much of a samurai's life was spent not in fighting, but in guarding, traveling, observing, and preparing. It was a life of watchfulness, of being always ready, and always composed. For Takashi, every patrol is a meditation. Every gesture is deliberate. Even in the way he wraps his food or sharpens his blade, there is care. There is attention. There is peace. Later that day, he meets a group of villagers. A farmer bows, explaining that bandits have taken shelter in the hills nearby. Takashi listens, nods, and asks for details. He promises to pass the word to his lord's retainers. He does not raise his voice. He offers no threats. His calm demeanor, his quiet confidence, speaks more loudly than any show of strength. The villagers trust him. As the sky begins to dim, painting the mountains in warm amber tones, Takashi returns to his home. He washes in the cold river and changes into lighter robes. At dusk, he lights a single candle. The wind has grown still. Crickets begin their song. He kneels again before the small altar in his home, offering thanks, not for victory, not for conquest, but for another day walked in honor, another path completed in silence. He bows deeply, the room dim and fragrant with incense. The day is done. Outside, the moon rises through drifting clouds. This is the quiet dawn of samurai Japan. There are no grand battles in this chapter, no epic tales of conquest. But in these hushed fields and wooded trails, a new way of life is beginning to shape itself. One built not on shouts, but on stillness. Not on ambition, but on devotion. The samurai spirit does not roar into existence. It emerges gently, like morning mist from the valley, patient and profound. The wind carries whispers through the valley. Across the ridgelines, autumn leaves drift to the ground like scattered memories. The countryside of Japan is still hushed, still cloaked in its slow rhythm of seasons, but beneath the stillness, something begins to shift. The year is no longer Heian. Time has edged into the 12th century. And with it, the world of the samurai begins to take a clearer shape. In the noble courts of Kyoto, the emperor still writes poems, still holds ceremonies beneath the cherry blossoms. But his grasp on power grows weaker by the day. Far from the capital's refined corridors, new forces rise, strong men, provincial lords, men born not into silk and poetry but into the dust of the earth. They are the heads of warrior clans, and they are shaping the land to their will. These clans, families like the Minamoto and the Taira, do not speak with courtly grace. They speak with their swords. Their loyalty is not always to the throne, but to survival, to strength, and to honor as they understand it. And as conflict grows between these mighty houses, the samurai, the once scattered rural protectors, become something more. They become an army. A still pond reflects the shape of a fortress, wooden palisades, towers of watchful eyes. Within its walls, young men practice swordplay beneath the watchful gaze of their lords. Bows are strung. Spears are sharpened. Armor is checked and lacquered. Horses are brushed and fed. There is no loud shouting. Only rhythm. Discipline. Repetition. Everything has its place. The Minamoto clan has grown strong in the north. Their banners, white with two intersecting bars, flap silently in the wind. The Taira clan, rooted in the south, draws power from the sea and the imperial court. Their crimson banners ripple like fire. Between these giants lies tension, quiet and brittle. And soon, like dry grass, it will catch flame. Among the Minamoto ranks is a warrior named Haruki. He is older than Takashi from the village days, weathered, hardened by years of skirmishes and border patrols. His armor is heavier now, layered with iron and bound in cords dyed blue-gray. His face is quiet, unreadable, but his eyes are steady. He trains his son in the courtyard, not with loud commands but with soft corrections. A shift in the stance. A refinement in the grip. Haruki believes in balance, between strength and mercy, between duty and peace. His son, Riku, is young but learning. His Bakken swings with growing confidence. Haruki says little. He lets the sword speak. Meanwhile, across the mountains, the Taira Lord Kayamori prepares his retainers for the struggles to come. His mansion sits by the sea, a place of rising tides and gilded beauty. Kayamori is no mere warrior, he is a statesman, a politician, a man of cunning and vision. He surrounds himself with monks, poets, and guards in gleaming armor. His word carries weight in the capital. His presence causes unease in the countryside. The Genpei War is coming. But for now, the land holds its breath. Villages continue their daily rhythms. Farmers harvest rice beneath the fading sun. Monks chant sutras behind temple walls. Children chase dragonflies over creeks. And yet, everywhere, there is a feeling, like distant thunder. Lords send messengers across rivers. Alliances form in shadow. Rice is stored, and swords are sharpened in silence. Back in the fortress of the Minamoto, Haruki prepares for departure. His lord has summoned the warriors. The message is clear, clashes are inevitable. The time of wandering samurai is passing. What lies ahead is something different. Something larger. Haruki sits with his son beneath a cedar tree. The air is thick with dusk, cicadas humming softly in the underbrush. He does not speak of war. Instead, he tells his son to remember silence. To respect the blade, but never crave blood. He tells him to protect the innocent, to listen to the wind, to never let anger drive the hand. The boy nods. The father watches the moon rise. Not all samurai seek glory. But the time of peace is ending. Across the land, the warrior clans gather their strength. Their banners rise. Their horses stir. Soon, the Genpei War will break, Minamoto against Taira, brother against brother. Castles will burn. Legends will be born. But tonight, there is still calm. The fire crackles gently. Armor is packed in lacquered chests. Arrows are counted. Horses drink quietly from troughs. And in the stillness before conflict, the warriors of Japan sit with their thoughts, their families, and the night sky. The wind grows stronger now. Trees bend gently, as though whispering secrets of what is to come. The birds are quieter than before, the skies slightly grayer. In the far hills, the crack of hooves and the jangle of armor echo faintly, blending into the rustle of leaves and the song of the river. Japan has entered a time of war. The Genpei War has begun. This great conflict, spanning nearly 5 years, will mark the fall of an age and the rise of a new one. It is not a war of great nations, it is a war of clans, of families bound by blood and rivalry. The Taira and the Minamoto, two great houses, once honored by the emperor, now draw their swords against each other. Their feud, rooted in court politics, pride, and power, has spilled from whispered halls into open fields. The banners rise. Minamoto's white flag, simple and austere, waves like a ghost through the mist. The Taira's red standard, bold as flame, shimmers over sea-sprayed cliffs and mountain trails. Each side gathers its warriors, men born not to debate but to fight, to serve, to die if honor requires it. We return to Haruki, the samurai of the Minamoto clan. He stands among his brothers in arms in the early light, his armor carefully bound, his sword freshly polished. A hush has fallen over the encampment. Campfires burn low. Horses shift in place. Warriors kneel for morning prayers, some chanting Buddhist sutras, others silent in their meditation. The first battle lies ahead. The clash at Uji Bridge. Uji is a peaceful river town near Kyoto. The Byodo-in temple, with its graceful phoenix hall, sits like a jewel in a garden. But on this day, the temple watches warriors approach. Minamoto forces take position at the wooden bridge, determined to halt the Taira advance. Haruki is among them. The river flows beneath his feet, but his mind is still, like the eye of a storm. As the Taira forces approach, a cry goes out. Arrows fly. The bridge quivers under the weight of charging warriors. The first blades clash in the soft gray dawn. Horses rear. Armor glints. The sounds are sudden and sharp, steel against steel, wood splintering, the shouted names of ancestors carried on the wind. And then, just as quickly, silence returns. Bodies lie still upon the bridge. Smoke rises. The river continues to flow, indifferent to the struggle. The battle is only the beginning. Across provinces, more clashes follow, at Ishibashiyama, at Tsunomadagawa, at Kurikara. The land, once quiet, now bears scars of fire and blood. Yet amid the chaos, the samurai remain disciplined. They still wake before sunrise. They still polish their blades with care. They still bow to the ancestors, even as they prepare to take lives. For the samurai of this age, war is not a frenzy, it is a ritual, a duty, a sacred burden. There is no glory in cruelty, no pride in waste. Even in war, there is order. Haruki watches younger warriors rush into battle, their hearts full of fire. He moves slower. Each stroke of his sword is measured, like a verse in a solemn poem. He does not fight to win. He fights to protect. To defend his clan. To fulfill a promise made long ago beneath a cedar tree. Far to the west, the Taira hold Kyoto. They are strong, wealthy, connected. Their ships guard the southern seas. But the Minamoto grow bolder with each campaign. Their strategy is sharper. Their discipline runs deep. And among them, a new leader begins to rise, Minamoto no Yoritamo. Yoritamo is calm, calculating. He speaks little, but thinks much. He sends messengers through mountain passes, forging alliances, gathering strength. He knows this war will not be won by steel alone, it will be won by patience, by unity, by vision. Still, the fighting continues. Villages burn. Temples are looted. Monks carry wounded samurai on stretchers woven from reeds. Mothers whisper lullabies beneath ruined rooftops. Yet through all this, the land continues to breathe. The rice still grows. The cranes still fly. And in small pockets of peace, samurai find moments of quiet, brief, precious. One such evening, Haruki tends to a wound by a stream. A Taira arrow grazed his shoulder. He washes it slowly, watching the water swirl red and clear. A dragonfly lands beside him. He does not move. He watches it, and breathes. The moon reflects in the stream. He thinks of his son. Of the pine-scented courtyard. Of the silence before dawn. This war, he knows, may not end in his lifetime. But the path he walks is clear. To serve with honor. To protect without hatred. To walk the way of the sword without surrendering the soul. And so he rises, and returns to his unit. The war will rage on for years. But even in its fury, the spirit of the samurai does not vanish. It endures in the small moments, in the way a bow is tied, in the stillness before battle, in the breath drawn before a final charge. The war fades, slowly, like smoke rising from a long-extinguished flame. The land still bears the scars, villages left in ashes, rivers that once ran red, families separated by years of silence. But as the Genpei War comes to its end in 1185, a new order begins to emerge. Not from the imperial palace in Kyoto, but from the eastern plains, where a quiet, calculating warrior waits by the sea. Minamoto no Yoritamo. He does not sing his own name. He does not wear gold robes or sit beneath canopies of brocade. His voice is low. His movements are measured. But around him, a new age begins to shape itself. The last blow in the Genpei War came at sea, at the Battle of Dan-no-Ura. In those churning waves, the Taira made their final stand, their ships caught in the tidal currents, their red banners fluttering against a pale sky. Arrows hissed across the waves. Swords clashed on narrow decks. And then, silence, except for the ocean, swallowing all. With that battle, the Taira fell. And so, too, did the old courtly world. The emperor still sat upon the chrysanthemum throne, but real power now shifted far to the east, to Kamakura, Yoritamo's coastal stronghold. There, among the pine groves and temple bells, the first shogunate was born. Not a king, not an emperor, but a military ruler. A shogun. Commander of the samurai. The dawn of feudal Japan had truly arrived. In Kamakura, the air feels different. The sea breeze carries salt and discipline. Samurai walk the streets not as solitary warriors but as the enforcers of a new government. Yoritamo builds his power slowly, appointing stewards and constables, issuing laws, and maintaining order through a delicate balance of loyalty and strength. The emperor remains in Kyoto, shrouded in incense and ritual. But it is Yoritamo's word that governs the land. And yet, Kamakura is no palace of gold. It is a place of wood and stone, of prayer halls and barracks, of scrolls and swords. The streets are quiet. Monks chant in nearby temples. Warriors train in the courtyards, archery, swordsmanship, strategy. The clatter of armor rings through the pine forests. And above it all, a mood of seriousness hangs, like a low fog. Haruki, the samurai from the Genpei War, has aged. His beard is streaked with gray. His movements are slower, but still precise. He walks the Kamakura paths with a sense of peace, his duty now more administrative than martial. He trains younger samurai. He offers prayers at the temple. He drinks tea with quiet dignity, his sword still by his side, though rarely drawn. He meets other veterans in the garden. They speak little. There is no need. They understand each other in the stillness. The war took much, but it also forged something enduring. A structure. A way. The samurai now had not only honor, but governance. In this new shogunate, laws are written in ink, not blood. Land is granted for service. Samurai swear loyalty to their daimyo, and daimyo to the shogun. The bonds of feudalism tighten gently around the nation, and for a time, peace settles like a warm cloak across the shoulders of Japan. But this peace is not soft. It is disciplined. Structured. The samurai of the Kamakura period walk with a quiet weight. Their lives are filled with ritual, meditation, sword practice, calligraphy. They learn to read, to write, to recite the sutras. They are warriors, yes, but not brutes. In every act, there is mindfulness. One young warrior in training, named Daichi, watches Haruki with reverence. He copies his kata exactly. He listens to his advice without question. He is taught not just how to fight, but how to bow, how to speak, how to sit still for an hour without stirring. Haruki tells him, "A samurai is not born in battle. He is shaped in stillness." Daichi nods. Later, they drink tea beneath a lantern. The tea is simple, green, bitter, steaming. Haruki pours slowly. He folds the cloth with care. He does not rush the silence between sips. In this act, too, there is training. Nearby, a scribe reads aloud from a scroll, a new law passed by Yoritomo. It speaks of taxes, land rights, and duties owed by samurai to their lords. It is not dramatic, but it is important. It is a sign that Japan is no longer ruled only by the poetry of emperors, but by the order of warriors. And so the shogunate grows. Kamakura becomes more than a stronghold. It becomes the heart of governance. Roads are built. Messengers ride. Temples are funded. The samurai take their place not just as fighters, but as stewards of the land. Their swords hang beside scrolls. Their armor rests near inkstones. The morning light filters through the paper shoji screens, casting soft, shifting patterns on the floor. In the stillness of a Kamakura training hall, the quiet sound of bare feet on tatami mats echoes like a gentle heartbeat. Outside, bamboo leaves rustle in the breeze. Inside, young warriors kneel in seiza, silent, focused, reverent. This is not a battlefield. It is a dojo, a place of study, of movement, of inner calm. The samurai have long since proven themselves in war. But now, in times of relative peace under the shogunate, another path begins to take shape, not just the way of the sword, but the way of the spirit. This chapter of the samurai life is less about conquest and more about mastery. Mastery of body, of mind, and of self. At the center of the dojo, Haruki stands with his wooden sword. Though his hair is now white and his face lined with years, his posture remains steady, his gaze unwavering. Around him, students watch with breath held. Without a word, he moves. Slowly at first, then with sudden speed, striking, turning, blocking, retreating. The kata is a dance. Each motion is exact, practiced for decades. His breathing remains even. When he finishes, he returns to stillness. The students bow. He bows in return. Haruki speaks in a quiet tone. Victory is not in speed, nor in strength. Victory is found in clarity, when the sword moves without fear, and the heart holds no anger. The students nod, absorbing not just technique, but principle. The sword, the katana, has now become more than a tool. It is the soul of the samurai, a symbol of their identity. Its forging is itself a sacred process. In a distant forge, flames rise as a swordsmith hammers red-hot steel, folding it again and again. Sparks dance in the air. The blade hums with potential. The katana is balanced, not just in weight, but in meaning. Its curve speaks of elegance. Its edge, of precision. It is not a weapon of brute force, but of refined intent. A true samurai draws it only when necessary, and always with awareness. To wield a katana is to embrace restraint. And alongside the sword, another tradition deepens, Zen Buddhism. More than a religion, Zen becomes a lens through which the samurai view life and death. It teaches silence, discipline, impermanence. Monks and warriors sit together in meditation halls, backs straight, hands resting in their laps, eyes half closed. The room is quiet except for the sound of breath and the occasional chime of a meditation bell. Haruki often visits such a hall, where a Zen monk named Daisetsu leads sessions beneath a great cedar beam. Together they sit, sometimes for hours, without a single word. In that silence, clarity grows. Thoughts settle. The mind sharpens. Haruki has come to treasure these moments as deeply as any victory in war. He writes in his journal. The sword is honed with fire. The spirit, with stillness. Both must be sharpened every day. In his home, Haruki has a garden. It is not large, but carefully tended. A single lantern, a winding path of stone, a pond where koi swim in lazy circles. He rakes the gravel each morning in precise patterns. Each stroke of the rake is deliberate, like a brushstroke. This practice, karasansui, the dry garden, is another form of training. An extension of the samurai's inward path. He tells his student, Daichi. To master the sword, you must also master the space around the sword. The space within you. And Daichi, now grown, listens closely. He too has taken to writing poetry, to meditating before each training session. His swordwork has become more fluid. He moves with an awareness beyond form, like the wind, like flowing water. His growth is not just in strength, but in presence. The way of the sword and spirit is not only for the battlefield. It is a way of living. Samurai now serve as judges, as land stewards, as quiet guardians of peace. They walk among villagers not with arrogance, but with purpose. They solve disputes with calm words when possible, with swords only when necessary. The presence of a samurai brings order, not fear, but trust. In one village, Daichi settles a land boundary dispute between two farmers. He listens patiently to each side, draws a map, walks the property himself. He rules not for favor, but for fairness. The farmers bow deeply. There is no reward, but there is respect. That evening, Daichi returns to the dojo, where Haruki waits in the fading light. You served them well, Haruki says. The sword remained sheathed, but your honor was sharp. Daichi bows. They practice together in the twilight. Wooden swords, slow strikes, steady breathing. The sound of bamboo leaves brushing in the breeze. And when the practice ends, they sit together on the porch, watching the moon rise. A full moon, high and silver. Time passes quietly. The dojo candles burn low. Scrolls line the walls, poems, teachings, fragments of wisdom. The students sleep soundly in their beds, their bodies tired but their spirits calm. And across the land, many other dojos hum with the same rhythm. Samurai in different provinces train, meditate, write, reflect. The sword remains sacred. The spirit remains central. High upon a hill, just as the first glow of dawn touches the tiled rooftops, a castle sits quietly, surveying the countryside like a watchful guardian. Its stone walls are thick, its wooden beams dark with age, its towers rising into the cool sky. Around it, the earth is alive, green rice fields stretching to the horizon, rivers winding like silk, and scattered villages humming with morning activity. This is not merely a fortress. It is the center of power, a place where strategy is whispered behind closed doors, where warriors gather, and where clans manage their lands and legacy. The age of the castle has come. Not yet the grand, towering white structures of the Edo period, these early fortresses are simpler, more practical. Built for defense, yes, but also for governance, for family, for presence. They are a reflection of the samurai's evolving role, not only as warriors, but as lords, as stewards, as pillars of local rule. Each clan, or uji, holds its own domain, passed down through generations. These clans are tightly knit, built on loyalty, shared bloodlines, and centuries of service. The most powerful clans control entire provinces, with hundreds or even thousands of samurai in their service. One such clan is the Hosokawa. Their castle stands beside a great lake, its gates flanked by cedar trees, its courtyards lined with pebbled paths. In its heart is Lord Hosokawa himself, a stern but thoughtful man. His robes are modest, his sword always nearby. Though he commands hundreds of retainers, he eats simply, prays often, and speaks rarely. Among his men is Daichi, now an accomplished samurai in service to the Hosokawa household. Daichi rises before sunrise, as always. He walks the castle grounds in quiet reflection. The moat glistens in the light. Guard switch shifts, bowing to one another without words. The stone towers stand firm against the sky, and in their shadows, the complex machinery of samurai power turns, calmly and efficiently. Inside the main hall, governance takes place. Samurai administrators kneel over maps and ledgers. Taxes are calculated. Grain is distributed. Disputes are resolved. Messages are written and sealed with wax. Everything flows like a steady stream, controlled and thoughtful. Daichi meets with the castle's magistrate to discuss a village's petition. Flooding has destroyed a portion of their harvest, and relief must be coordinated. There is no shouting, no panic. Every step is taken with care. This, too, is the work of the samurai. Not just the sword. Not just the battlefield. But service. Beyond the castle walls, loyalty binds everything together. Samurai swear oaths to their daimyo, or lords. In return, they are granted land, fiefs, where they may build homes, plant rice, and raise families. These samurai are expected to manage their estates justly, train constantly, and report for service when summoned. Failure to fulfill these duties is not just dishonorable, it can lead to disgrace, exile, or death. Clans compete, but they also intermarry, forming webs of alliance and obligation. These bonds can last generations, or unravel in a single betrayal. Power is delicate, like a porcelain teacup. Even the strongest daimyo must walk carefully, balancing strength with wisdom. And still, the castle endures. Its outer walls protect from attack. Its inner courtyards bloom with carefully tended gardens. Within, samurai train in archery, swordsmanship, and tactics. Children learn poetry, calligraphy, and history. Women of the clan manage the household, defend its honor, and often wield quiet but considerable influence. As the day warms, Daichi walks the western walls. From here, he can see the fields where Ishigaru, the foot soldiers, practice formations with spears. He remembers being among them once, younger, full of fire and questions. Now he guides them, corrects their footwork, and teaches not only how to fight, but when not to. He carries a scroll with him today, a clan edict about grain storage. The ink is fresh, the handwriting neat. He will deliver it to a village elder before sunset. But for now, he sits in a shaded alcove of the wall, looking out over the land his clan protects. A hawk glides silently overhead. Below, farmers lead oxen through muddy paths. A woman washes clothes in a stream. Children play with sticks, pretending to be warriors. Life continues, steady, seasonal, simple. And at the center of it all, the castle stands like a great tree, its roots deep, its presence immovable. At dusk, a ceremony takes place in the castle's main hall. Daichi kneels with other retainers as Lord Hosokawa enters, his steps silent, his expression unreadable. He offers incense at the family altar. A low drum sounds. A monk chants a brief sutra. The flame of a single candle flickers. The Lord addresses his warriors, not with pomp, but with purpose. Serve with care, he says. Guard the people. Watch the borders. Sharpen your swords. And sharpen your hearts. They all bow deeply. In this single moment, between the incense, the chant, the bow, the full weight of samurai life becomes clear. Strength and duty. Power and compassion. Command and silence. That night, Daichi returns to his quarters. He lights a small lantern and writes a short poem. Stone beneath moonlight. Castle shadows guard the fields. Peace walks with steel boots. In the early light of a spring morning, the garden behind the samurai residence glistens with dew. Blossoms from the cherry trees float gently to the ground, their petals like whispers in the air. A woman kneels near the pond, brushing away fallen petals with her hand, her movements precise and delicate. Her name is Lady Aiko, and though she wears no sword at her side, her strength is every bit as real as the men who walk the castle walls. The story of samurai Japan often centers on the warrior, on armor, blade, and battle. But in the quiet corners of this world, samurai women played a role just as vital, shaping the heart of the clan, the rhythm of the home, and the legacy of the family. Lady Aiko is the daughter of a noble house. She was trained from youth not only in etiquette and poetry but also in strategy, literacy, and defense. Her calligraphy is praised across the province. Her skill with the naginata, a curved blade polearm often used by women, is respected among retainers. And within the household, her word carries weight. In samurai society, a woman's duty is layered and complex. She is expected to manage the household, overseeing servants, organizing provisions, and handling matters of finance. But she is also the moral anchor of the family. Her discipline, her wisdom, and her composure reflect directly upon her husband's honor. Yet honor is not confined to men. In times of war, when castles are attacked and lords ride out to battle, it is the women who remain behind to defend the home. There are stories, quietly passed down, of women standing atop walls, guiding archers, organizing supplies, and leading resistance. Some even fight, side by side with the remaining retainers. Aiko walks through the corridor of her home, her kimono brushing softly against the polished floorboards. In her hand is a scroll, a letter from her cousin in another province. It speaks of tension between rival clans, a possible alliance, a marriage proposal. Aiko reads it carefully, her brow calm, her thoughts turning. She will advise her husband in the evening, but for now, she prepares for the tea ceremony, an event she hosts not for pleasure alone, but for diplomacy. In this ritual, every gesture is intentional. Every bow, every turn of the cup, every silence between sips carries meaning. Guests arrive, wives of other samurai, daughters of officials. They sit together in a small tatami room, surrounded by bamboo and soft incense. Aiko performs the tea ritual with serene grace. Her movements are slow, elegant, respectful. As she pours the tea, the conversation flows, about the harvest, the weather, a new monk's teachings. But beneath the surface, subtle messages are exchanged. A compliment veils a warning. A poem hints at shifting loyalties. In this space, the politics of the province are gently stirred, not with swords, but with smiles and words. Beyond the parlor, in a quiet room, Aiko's daughter, Sayuri, practices writing. She is only 10 years old, but her posture is perfect, her stroke steady. Aiko watches from the doorway. Sayuri's inkstone is nearly dry, but she continues to write, determined. The poem is short, but it holds promise. Spring wind through branches. Mother's voice calls from afar. Strong roots hold the earth. Aiko smiles softly and walks over to help her grind more ink. She places her hand on Sayuri's shoulder, not just as a mother, but as a teacher. In this moment, the thread of tradition is passed down, quietly, lovingly. Sayuri will learn everything Aiko knows. How to read and write. How to lead and listen. How to defend a home. How to remain composed, even when the world trembles. There are tales from history, whispered like lullabies, of Anabugeisha, warrior women of the samurai class. There was Tomo Guzan, who rode into battle in the late 12th century, cutting through enemies with fierce precision. Her presence on the battlefield was more than symbolic, she fought alongside her male counterparts with unmatched bravery. There was Nakano Takiko, who during the fall of the Edo era in the 19th century, led a unit of women into combat, striking fear into the hearts of soldiers with her naginata. These women were rare, but they were real. Their legacy lingers like a soft drumbeat behind the tales of great generals. Yet most samurai women, like Aiko, wielded their power not in open war, but in the realm of influence, teaching, steadiness. They were keepers of culture, of tradition, of grace in an age of steel. As night falls, the household dims its lanterns. Aiko kneels by her private altar and offers a small prayer. She thinks not of glory or conquest, but of harmony, within the home, within the clan, within her own spirit. In another room, her husband discusses patrol schedules with his men. The house is divided in tasks, but united in purpose. Later, Aiko and her husband sit together in the garden. No words are spoken. The cherry trees rustle overhead. The koi swims silently beneath the water's surface. Moonlight glows softly across the stepping stones. In this quiet moment, there is deep respect. Two souls walking parallel paths, his forged in battle, hers in balance. Together, they keep the world in order. Samurai women were never passive figures in the story of Japan. They were poets and protectors, mothers and mentors, guardians of the unseen. In the soft spaces between wars, they held the world in place. In the gentle hush before dawn, a samurai kneels before a small shrine in his home. Incense curls upward in delicate spirals, fading into the shadows above. His palms press together in silent prayer, not to request fortune or favor, but to center himself. This is not a mere morning ritual. This is his way of walking the path of Bushido, the way of the warrior. The world outside may shift, clans may rise and fall, storms may batter the coast, but within the heart of a true samurai, one thing remains constant: honor. Bushido is more than a code. It is a quiet breath carried with every step. It is the soft discipline of waking early, the gentle bow offered in greeting, the stillness of the mind even in the face of chaos. Though the sword gleams brightly in battle, it is character, not steel, that defines a samurai's soul. The principles of Bushido were not always written in scrolls or etched in stone. They lived in the way a warrior acted when no one was watching. In the calm manner he accepted a command. In the fairness of his judgment. In the respect he showed to enemy and ally alike. Rectitude, to do what is right, even when it is difficult. Courage, not recklessness, but measured bravery in the face of fear. Benevolence, kindness extended not only to friends, but to the weak and vulnerable. Respect, treating others with dignity, regardless of their rank. Honesty, speaking truth, living sincerely. Honor, upholding one's word, no matter the cost. Loyalty, unwavering devotion to lord and family. These 7 tenets flow like water into every part of a samurai's life, shaping even the smallest choices. In the village beyond the castle walls, the townspeople whisper the name of Takashi, a young samurai known not for flashy feats, but for his quiet discipline. He bows to elders, waits patiently in line at the blacksmith, and offers his portion of rice to a hungry child during lean months. People trust him. Not because he is powerful, but because he is consistent. His life reflects Bushido, not in grand gestures, but in steady rhythms. This morning, Takashi is on his way to the dojo. The gravel crunches softly beneath his sandals. He passes under the torii gate, bows at the entrance, and removes his shoes. The floor is cool beneath his feet. He kneels before the master, bows again. Training begins not with combat, but with silence. Only when the heart is still can the blade be steady. Bushido also teaches self-restraint. A samurai does not lash out in anger, nor does he gloat in victory. In every triumph, he bows to the fallen. In every defeat, he accepts responsibility. This humility is not weakness, it is strength held under control. Takashi remembers a moment during his first campaign. A rival warrior had fallen, wounded and disarmed. Rather than deliver the final blow, Takashi offered his hand. That man later became one of his most trusted comrades. Mercy, too, has its place in the code. But Bushido is not without pain. In its purest form, honor must be upheld even at the cost of one's life. The ultimate expression of loyalty is to die in the service of one's lord. And if a samurai fails his duty or dishonors his name, he may be expected to commit seppuku, a ritual suicide to preserve dignity in death. This act is not done lightly. It is not romantic, nor glorious. It is solemn, mournful, and deeply spiritual. It is a final offering, a way to make things right when no other path remains. Still, true followers of Bushido strive to live so well that such an end is never needed. The code is a guide for living with purpose, not merely a standard for dying with pride. At midday, Takashi sits beneath the plum tree in the courtyard, a scroll open across his lap. It is a collection of wisdom from ancient warriors, sayings passed down from sensei to student. One line stands out. To master the sword is to first master the self. He closes his eyes. The wind brushes gently across his face. Somewhere nearby, bamboo chimes click softly in the breeze. In the tea house later that evening, the atmosphere is calm. Guests from a neighboring province have come to discuss a potential alliance. Takashi sits silently, observing. He says little, but listens deeply. When spoken to, his words are measured, never boastful. He has learned that Bushido speaks most clearly in restraint. A samurai must never let pride cloud his decisions. Even in moments of disagreement, he must remain respectful, even tempered. His goal is not to defeat with words, but to preserve harmony. Later, one of the visiting lords leans in and whispers, "That young man. They say he is a fine swordsman. But what impresses me is his composure." When the moon is high and the grounds are quiet, Takashi walks to the edge of the garden pond. The water reflects the night sky like a mirror. He stands still, one hand resting lightly on the hilt of his katana, not in defense, but in companionship. The sword is not merely a weapon. It is a symbol of responsibility. He draws it slowly, not to fight, but to clean it. He wipes the blade with cloth, oils it gently, and returns it to its sheath. Then, he bows to it, as one might bow to an old friend. This, too, is Bushido. In the silence of the samurai path, the loudest truth is often unspoken. It lives in the way one walks, the way one treats others, the way one chooses patience over rage, honor over gain. Under the gentle light of a crescent moon, a katana rests beside its owner, gleaming softly as if whispering stories through its steel. To the untrained eye, it is merely a blade. But to a samurai, it is much more, an extension of the soul, an echo of discipline, and a sacred companion on the path of honor. The katana is not born in a day. It begins as raw metal, impure, unshaped, and through fire, folding, and relentless refinement, it becomes something greater. The process mirrors the samurai himself. Through hardship, through training, and through inner struggle, he is shaped into something strong, balanced, and precise. Let us journey back in time to a small forge nestled in the mountain valleys of Japan. There, the smith, known as a tasho, rises before the sun. He bows before his anvil, as if paying respect to the spirit within the materials he is about to awaken. The forge glows red. Sparks fly. Layers of steel are folded upon themselves again and again, sometimes over 1,000 times. This folding purifies the blade, removing weakness and enhancing its strength. As the hammer falls in rhythm, each strike sings like a quiet drumbeat, echoing through the trees. The samurai and his katana are linked by more than just battle. The sword is forged with the same care that a warrior must apply to his life. Every fold represents a lesson, every quenching a test, every polish a reminder to seek clarity even in the darkest moments. When Takashi, the young samurai, first received his katana, he did not swing it. Instead, he bowed to it. Then, he sat silently with it across his lap, eyes closed, hands resting gently on its scabbard. His master taught him, before you lift the sword, know its weight in peace. The katana is not meant for cruelty or chaos. It is not brandished with pride. It is unsheathed only with purpose, and returned to its resting place with reverence. There is a term for this bond, kenshi no kokoro, the heart of the swordsperson. A true samurai does not dominate with the blade. He unites with it. The sword does not act for vengeance, it acts for balance. Each katana carries its own story. Some are passed down through generations, engraved with family crests, wrapped in silks faded by time. Others are newly forged, still humming with the energy of fresh creation. No matter their age, all share a single quality, a quiet dignity. The blade is slightly curved, designed for swift, fluid motion. It is not heavy, but it commands respect. The edge is razor-sharp, yet it is the mind behind the sword that determines its purpose. Takeshi often practices Iaido, the art of drawing and cutting in a single motion. In a quiet dojo, he stands still for long minutes, eyes closed, breathing slow and even. Then, in a blur of movement, he draws, strikes, and returns the blade to its sheath. The action is over in a heartbeat, but the calm before and after is what defines the ritual. Control is everything. There is also the spiritual side of the katana. In Shinto belief, objects can possess a kami, or spirit, and swords, especially those forged with care, are thought to hold a living presence. Many samurai believe their swords guide them, speak to them, even protect them. Takeshi, too, sometimes feels it, a subtle guidance when training, a sensation of readiness when danger is near. When he cleans the blade, he does so not out of routine, but out of respect. His cloth strokes the steel as one might calm a horse or brush the petals of a flower. Each cleaning is a meditation. Each inspection, a moment of connection. There are times, too, when the katana speaks without words, in battle. Though Takeshi has only seen a handful of real conflicts, he remembers each vividly. In one such moment, under falling rain, he stood across from a rogue bandit who had entered a village, sword drawn. It would have been easy to end the fight quickly, but Takeshi waited. He offered a warning, a choice, a path to retreat. Only when no other way remained did he draw. The katana moved as if on its own, guided not by anger, but by instinct honed through years of practice. The strike was clean. The fight ended in a breath. And afterward, Takeshi bowed, to his opponent, to the villagers, and finally, to his blade. He then wrapped it in cloth, as if tucking a companion to rest. In quieter times, Takeshi writes poems inspired by the katana. Short verses, written with the same clarity and economy the sword demands. One of his favorites reads: "Steel sings in silence. Echo of the mountain's wind. Drawn, but never loud." These poems are kept in a small journal beside his futon. They remind him that the true power of the katana is not its sharpness, but its restraint. A blade unused is not wasted, it is wise. Sometimes, during tea ceremonies, guests will admire the sword resting on its stand. They will ask questions: is it heavy? Has it seen battle? But Takeshi always answers the same way. It has seen stillness more than war. That is what makes it strong. In this way, the katana teaches its own version of Bushido. Not just the way of action, but the way of stillness. The lesson that strength lies not in how often we use our power, but in how often we choose not to. As the morning mist drifts gently over the tiled rooftops of a secluded mountain village, a soft clinking of porcelain and bamboo echoes from within a small wooden tea house. The world outside is hushed, and inside, serenity reigns. Here, we find the samurai Takeshi seated before a lacquered table, preparing for the quiet ritual of shinoyu, the Japanese tea ceremony. In this moment, there is no sword, no armor, no conflict. Only a bowl, a whisk, a kettle, and a heart willing to be still. The way of tea, known as chado or sado, is more than the act of making and serving tea. It is a pathway to inner harmony, a discipline of calm, an art that values imperfection, presence, and peace. The ceremony begins not with tea, but with cleaning. Every movement is slow and deliberate. Takeshi wipes the bamboo scoop with a silk cloth, not just to cleanse it, but to bring his focus inward. He listens to the kettle as it simmers, a soft, bubbling whisper that blends with the breeze brushing through the open shoji screen. Guests bow as they enter, stepping carefully onto the woven tatami mats. There are no grand greetings, only gestures of humility and awareness. In the tea room, all are equal. Status, title, and past achievements are left behind like shoes at the door. The host bows deeply. So do the guests. Everything is unspoken, yet everything is understood. In the stillness of the tea ceremony, the samurai finds something unexpected, a mirror to his path. Just like the drawing of a sword, each movement in shinoyu must be smooth and controlled. The way the tea is scooped, the wrist turning the bowl, the circular motion of the whisk, all are perfected over years of practice. Not to impress, but to reveal simplicity. Takashi recalls the words of his tea master. The essence of tea is this: purity, respect, harmony, and tranquility. These 4 pillars, known as wakeseijaku, are not exclusive to tea. They are the same values that guide the samurai through life and death. Harmony with nature is key. The tea room itself, or chishitsu, is made of humble materials: wood, paper, clay. The room opens to a small garden, where moss grows in crevices and a stone lantern stands near a water basin. This space is not manicured but natural, an expression of wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and impermanence. The garden is not meant to impress. It is meant to soothe. As Takashi lifts the tea bowl, or chawan, and offers it to his guest, there is no rush. The guest accepts it with both hands, turning it slowly to admire its craftsmanship before sipping. They do not gulp, they savor. Every breath, every taste, is part of the ceremony. Takashi's hands are strong from swordsmanship, yet they move with gentleness. The same fingers that once gripped the hilt of a katana now hold a fragile bowl of green tea with the care of holding a newborn. For in this room, violence is absent. Instead, the energy is channeled inward, toward quiet understanding. Sometimes, the guests speak. A short poem, a reflection on the weather, or a memory of plum blossoms from the last spring. But long silences are welcome, even cherished. They allow space for thought, for breath, for being fully present. Takashi remembers a particular spring afternoon, when a monk once joined the tea gathering. The monk said very little but placed a small pebble on the table and smiled. Later, when asked about it, the monk whispered, "In this stone lies the mountain. In this tea, the world. All that is vast can fit in a single bowl, if the heart is still." Takashi kept that pebble in his pouch for years afterward. The tea itself is matcha. Powdered green tea whisked to a smooth froth. Its taste is deep and earthy, slightly bitter but cleansing. Takashi drinks slowly, letting it settle into his body like a warm breeze through an autumn forest. And when the tea is gone, the bowl is admired again. Cracks in the glaze are not hidden, but celebrated. This is kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, to honor the history of the object. A broken bowl is not ruined. It is reborn with beauty in its scars. So too is the samurai. Scars on his spirit, his body, or his past are not shameful. They are gold-filled veins in the pottery of his life. Each one a reminder of pain transformed into wisdom. As the ceremony draws to a close, the tools are cleaned once more. The guests bow, slowly rising to leave, their minds quieter than when they entered. Outside, the garden remains unchanged, stones unmoved, birds silent in the trees. Takashi remains behind, kneeling before the tea utensils. He breathes slowly, placing the chawan back into its box, wrapping it in soft cloth. He whispers a short haiku to himself. Steam curls from the bowl. Mountains lean in to listen. Peace in every sip. The morning fog hangs low over the gravel path as the samurai Takashi walks barefoot to the dojo. His footsteps are quiet, his breaths measured. The world is still, the mist swirling gently around him like a dream not yet fully awake. Birds call softly from distant pines. A bamboo water spout clacks rhythmically in a nearby garden. These are the sounds of dawn in feudal Japan. The dojo is a simple wooden structure, no grand gates or carvings. Its presence is humble, but within it lies a lifetime of discipline. Here, warriors are not just forged in the body, but in spirit and mind. As Takeshi approaches, he bows deeply before stepping onto the polished wooden floor. This, too, is ritual. Everything begins and ends with a bow. Inside, the air is cool and smells faintly of cedar and oil. Sunlight filters in through the rice paper walls, casting pale squares of light across the floor. The weapons, bakken, spears, and staves, rest neatly on racks, waiting like silent guardians. Takeshi kneels, adjusting the folds of his gi, then joins the others in seiza, the kneeling posture of attentiveness. There are no loud greetings, no rushing about. The dojo is a place of focused calm. Before training begins, the students sit in meditation, eyes half closed, back straight, listening to the sound of their own breath. 10 minutes pass. Then 20. This is not time wasted, it is time cultivated. The heart must be still before the sword can be true. Their master enters, robes sweeping softly, face unreadable. The class bows deeply. He carries only a bakken, a wooden practice sword. Yet in his hands, it might as well be steel. His presence fills the space like a slow-burning fire. He nods. No words yet. Only demonstration. Takeshi watches every movement. The master draws the bakken with a fluid grace that feels more like poetry than combat. He steps forward, turns, slashes, and sheaths again, all in one seamless motion. This is kata. The prearranged forms that train both body and spirit. Now the students rise. They begin their own practice, repeating the same sequence, over and over. Step. Turn. Strike. Breathe. Return. Hours pass this way. There is no clock, no signal for breaks. The rhythm is internal. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Sweat glistens on brows, yet the dojo remains quiet, only the soft thud of bare feet and the swish of fabric. Sometimes, the master corrects a stance with a gentle tap. He says little. The learning comes not from speaking, but from doing, again and again. Takeshi remembers when he first began. His muscles ached. His spirit wavered. But the repetition, the structure, the silence, it changed him. There is freedom in form. There is discipline in daily ritual. Later, they train in pairs. Wooden swords clash lightly, never in anger. Timing, distance, balance, these are the true enemies. There is no competition, only growth. Every mistake is a lesson. Every fall is a step forward. When Takeshi is struck, he bows. When he strikes, he bows again. Victory is not celebrated. Defeat is not mourned. Both are part of the path. Outside the dojo, the mist has lifted. The sun now glows warmly over the gravel yard, where a few students practice aido, the art of drawing and cutting with the katana. Each draw must be precise. Not just fast, but intentional. Nearby, a young boy sweeps the courtyard with a bamboo broom. This, too, is training. Cleaning is not a chore, but a form of mindfulness. To sweep the earth is to sweep the mind. Takeshi steps outside, bowing again as he leaves the dojo. He wipes the sweat from his brow with a cloth and takes a slow breath. His body is sore, but his spirit feels clear. The repetition, the silence, the order, they have become a part of him. In the afternoon, there is time for study. Samurai were not only warriors, but scholars and poets. Takeshi returns to his room and unrolls a scroll of classical poetry. He reads. In stillness, the pine leans quietly. In motion, the crane lifts its wings. He closes his eyes and lets the words echo within him. Sword and scroll, body and mind, both must be sharpened. Later, he copies passages of Confucian philosophy with a brush and inkstone. The strokes must be even. The hand steady. This, too, is training. As evening falls, a bell sounds across the compound. It is time for evening bows and reflection. The samurai gather once more in the dojo, kneeling in silence. The master speaks softly, perhaps a few words about diligence, humility, or honor. No applause follows. Just quiet nods, and then the slow bowing of heads. Takashi walks home through a forest path lit by fireflies. The day's rituals linger in his breath and his bones. He stops near a stream and listens to the soft gurgle of water over stones. He thinks of the dojo, the quiet discipline, the fluid movements of the Bakken, the silent wisdom of the master. It was not a day of grand events, but of small, meaningful actions. And that is what makes it powerful. The sky is gray with drifting clouds, and a soft breeze moves through the grasses by the roadside. Along the winding dirt path, a lone figure walks, his kimono dusty, his swords worn, yet still sheathed with care. This is no ordinary traveler. This is a ronin, a masterless samurai. His name is Arita. Once, he served a powerful daimyo. Once, he had a place among many. But war came, and his lord fell. The castle crumbled. The retainers scattered like leaves in wind. Now, Arita walks alone, not as a dishonored man, but as one without anchor. A wave no longer tied to the tide. The life of a ronin is quiet, difficult, and often misunderstood. There are no retainers to serve tea. No grand estates. No banners to march behind. Only long roads, silent forests, and uncertain welcomes at village inns. Still, Arita keeps to the code. His swords are sharpened each morning. His clothing mended by hand. He bows to shrines along the way and helps old farmers lift water pails when no one asks. He moves with humility, not pride. He carries only what he needs, a few coins, a scroll of poetry, a simple ink brush, and a flute carved from a hollow reed. In moments between travel, he sits beneath trees and plays soft tunes. The music is not for crowds. It is for memory. For peace. For presence. In many villages, ronin are met with suspicion. A samurai without a lord is seen as a blade without a sheath, dangerous, unstable. But Arata's gaze is gentle. His voice is low. Children notice first. They follow him at a distance, curious about the quiet man with 2 swords and soft footsteps. Sometimes he finds work. A wealthy farmer asks him to protect the fields from bandits. Arita agrees, asking for little in return, just a warm meal and a place to sleep. At night, he sleeps in the barn among the hay. He listens to the wind, the insects, the faraway hoot of an owl. He dreams not of battles, but of falling petals and calm streams. And when trouble comes, when bandits arrive under a moonless sky, Arita does not boast. He stands quietly, hand on his katana. He gives them a chance to turn back. Only when they raise their weapons does he draw. His sword moves only as far as it must. The battle is short. The villagers are safe. Arita receives thanks, but declines any gold. He leaves before dawn. To stay too long would invite attachment. An attachment, for the ronin, is a longing without ground. Days later, Arita finds a mountain shrine nearly swallowed by vines. The monks who once chanted there are long gone, but he stops and clears the stone steps. He sweeps fallen leaves with a bundle of twigs. He lights a small incense stick and bows before the altar. There is no one to see it. And that is enough. He walks on, now through forests lit by golden light. He writes poetry as he walks, haiku shaped by the rhythm of his steps. Fallen Lord's banner. Now just a faded memory. A crane flies alone. At a riverside village, he meets an old swordsman, another ronin, older, slower, but kind. They share sake and stories beside a fire. The elder says, a masterless samurai walks the same path as the wind, unbound, yet never still. Arata nods, watching the flames flicker. He does not speak of the battles he's seen or the lords he once served. Instead, he says softly, the path itself has become my teacher. In a small town, a young boy asks him what it means to be a ronin. Arata kneels to meet the boy's gaze. It means I carry the code of the samurai not for a man or a clan, but for its own sake. Even without a roof above me, I protect. Even without a title, I serve. Honor is not something given. It is something kept. The boy does not fully understand, but he bows, instinctively. There are moments when Arata feels the weight of solitude, when the road stretches too far, or the sky is too quiet. But then he looks at the horizon and feels something deeper than sorrow, stillness. The freedom to walk at his own pace, to meet the seasons as they are, and to listen to the world as it truly sounds. In the distance, mountains rise like sleeping giants. There, in the high passes, he finds an abandoned temple. He decides to stay a while. He sweeps the floor, repairs the leaking roof, and lights the hearth. The temple slowly comes back to life, not in grandeur, but in presence. Travelers pass through and find warmth. Arata teaches children how to bow. He shows a young woman how to hold a brush for calligraphy. A farmer learns how to balance a staff. They do not know he was once a samurai in service to a mighty lord. To them, he is simply a quiet man who walks the earth with calm purpose. The morning sun peeks gently over a tiled rooftop. A paper screen slides open with a soft rustle. Within the quiet of the home, a woman kneels in silence. She arranges fresh plum blossoms in a simple vase. Her hands move gracefully, each placement intentional. Her name is Lady Aiko, and she is not merely the wife of a samurai. She is a samurai in spirit. In feudal Japan, the world of the warrior was not reserved for men alone. Though history often paints with bold strokes, between its lines are softer shades, of women who shaped and upheld the Code of Bushido, not with loud proclamations, but with quiet, enduring strength. Lady Aiko's husband is away, patrolling the borderlands. She has not seen him for 3 moons. And so, within their household, she is the leader. She manages the fields, oversees the servants, and teaches the younger children calligraphy, poetry, and ethics. Her sword, slender and curved, rests near the doorway, should she ever need it. Women like Aiko were known as onabugeisha, female warriors trained in martial arts, archery, and the principles of honor and defense. Their duty was not to chase glory in the battlefield, but to protect the home, the land, and the legacy of their clan. Aiko's mother taught her to wield the naginata, a long pole weapon with a curved blade. In the open garden, she practices each morning, her movements fluid, balanced, almost like a dance. The wind lifts the ends of her sleeve as she turns, striking invisible enemies with precision. Her face remains serene. She does not train for violence. She trains for readiness. Nearby, her daughter Misaki watches in awe. Misaki, just 13, has begun her own lessons. Aiko teaches her not just how to hold a blade, but how to hold herself, with dignity, with purpose, with calm. She reminds her daughter that strength is not in striking down an opponent, but in rising with grace when the world feels uncertain. Do not chase power, she tells her. Let power rest in your stillness. In the village, Aiko is both respected and admired. When disputes arise, her words carry weight. She listens more than she speaks. She settles arguments with clarity, not command. When a neighbor's roof caves under heavy rain, she sends 2 workers and a fresh bundle of timber. No reward is asked. Her role, she believes, is to care for the whole, not just her own. This quiet leadership is a pillar of the samurai household. Though many Onibigeisha never ride into open war, some do. The most legendary among them, Tomo Guzan, Nakano Takiko, fought with fierce bravery. But thousands of others, like Aiko, wielded a different kind of strength, the discipline to protect, the wisdom to endure, the courage to nurture amidst uncertainty. One evening, a letter arrives by courier. Aiko's husband is safe. He will return before the first snow. She folds the letter slowly and places it beside a single candle. Her heart is calm. She has learned not to grasp at joy nor dwell in sorrow. Each moment is a season, and each season is welcomed in silence. That night, she writes a poem before bed. Lantern in still rain. Hearth burns soft for one unseen. Yet love does not dim. When storms come, she reads aloud from the tale of Genji by lantern light. The children gather around her, listening to the flowing words, unaware that this gentle storyteller also commands the estate, trains in martial discipline, and writes letters to daimyos in the name of her absent husband. In her chamber, Aiko maintains a small altar to her ancestors. She bows each morning, offering incense and gratitude, not for wealth, not for conquest, but for the strength to hold peace within her home. That, she believes, is a warrior's victory. Outside, winter settles in. Snow touches the edges of the garden. Aiko wraps herself in a heavier kimono and sits at the engawa, the wooden veranda, watching flakes fall in slow spirals. There is no rush. There is no war. There is only presence. She closes her eyes and breathes, becoming part of the season. To the world, the samurai code was carved into steel. But within homes like Aiko's, it was also woven into thread, brewed in tea, written in letters, and whispered in lullabies. Women upheld the way of the warrior not with noise, but with nurture, not only through strength, but through stillness. In every quiet decision, in every kind act, in every firm boundary drawn with grace, they shaped the legacy of samurai Japan. A legacy not of conquest alone, but of care, of calm, of quiet courage. The forge is quiet before dawn. Only the distant sound of roosters echoes in the valley, while the wind stirs softly through the pine trees above. Within a small workshop built of wood and stone, a man kneels before an unlit hearth. His name is Masaru, and he is not a samurai, but he holds the samurai soul in his hands. He is a katanakaji, a swordsmith. The blade of the samurai is not merely a weapon. It is a symbol, a spirit, an extension of the warrior's discipline. To create a sword is not to craft steel, it is to carve patience into form, to blend fire and breath and silence into a single edge. Masaru begins his work in stillness. Before the fire is lit, he bows to his tools, the hammer, the tongs, the anvil, the whetstone. Each has its own spirit, its own place in the ritual. He whispers a quiet prayer to the kami of the forge, asking for clarity, strength, and respect. Then, with a single spark, he awakens the fire. The flames come slowly, feeding on carefully selected charcoal. Masaru controls the heat with practiced gestures, never rushing, never distracted. For him, this work is sacred. A single mistake, a crack in the metal, a moment of imbalance, could mean the blade will not sing in its user's hands. He begins with tamahagane, a special steel folded from iron sand, smelted over days in a traditional furnace called a tatara. This material is rare, beautiful, and alive in a way that modern steel never is. Masaru selects the pieces with care, some hard, some soft, balancing strength with flexibility. He heats the steel until it glows like the morning sun. With steady rhythm, he folds and hammers it, again and again, sometimes thousands of times. Each fold strengthens the metal. Each strike carries intention. Outside, the world moves forward. But inside the forge, time bends. The swordsmith breathes with the fire. His movements are neither fast nor slow, they are natural. Like water flowing around stone. Like wind passing over grass. This is the rhythm of centuries. As the blade takes shape, it begins to curve gently, an elegant arc born from precise control of heat and quenching. Masaru tempers the blade in water, then draws it back from the depths with care. Steam rises. The room is silent. This moment is sacred. The blade, transformed by flame, now holds its final spirit. He examines the hamon, the wavy temper line along the edge. It is delicate, unique, like a fingerprint. Each sword has its own character, its own voice. No two are the same. Masaru knows this blade will belong to a young samurai named Daisuke, the second son of a noble clan. Daisuke trains each day under the watch of his elders, his hands still unsure, but his heart steady. Masaru does not know him well, but he knows the blade must match the soul. He shapes the tang, polishes the steel, sharpens the edge. Every stage is done by hand. There are no shortcuts. Nothing rushed. Only precision, care, and quiet focus. As the sun sets outside, the blade is complete. Masaru places it on a stand and bows again. He feels not pride, but peace. The sword is not his. It belongs now to the path of another. But a part of his breath, his silence, and his patience will live within its edge. He wraps the blade carefully in silk, places it in a wooden box, and seals it with a gentle knot. He lights incense, letting its scent drift through the forge. Tomorrow, a samurai will arrive to receive it. That evening, Masaru sits by the open window. The forge is dark, its fire now ash. He sips warm tea, listening to the wind in the trees. He does not need applause or recognition. His work is already alive, carried into the world in the hands of warriors, in the quiet tension before a duel, in the stillness of a sword resting by its owner's side. The blade is not meant to be drawn often. In truth, the ideal samurai may never need it. But when it is drawn, it must be perfect. Not just in edge, but in spirit. And so, the swordsmith's legacy is not in the violence of the blade, but in its balance. The way of the swordsmith mirrors the way of the samurai, disciplined, humble, unshaken by hurry. Just as a warrior sharpens his mind, so too does Masaru sharpen the steel. Just as a samurai reads poetry to soothe the soul, Masaru listens to wind and ember, knowing silence carries truth. By morning, the young samurai arrives with quiet reverence. Masaru greets him not as a craftsman, but as a fellow traveler on a sacred path. Together, they sit and drink tea. The blade is presented with both hands, the silk carefully removed. Daisuke holds the sword, his eyes wide with awe. He bows deeply, not just to Masaru, but to the spirit of all that brought this moment into being. And Masaru, watching with calm eyes, knows the cycle is complete. The sun filters gently through a paper screen, casting soft shadows on the tatami floor. A breeze stirs the bamboo chimes outside, creating a quiet rhythm like breath on water. Inside the modest tea house, all is prepared. Tatami mats are swept, the kettle is heated, and every utensil is precisely placed. The host kneels with calm focus, adjusting a scroll on the wall that bears a single brushstroke of calligraphy, wabi, meaning simplicity, beauty and imperfection. This is not just a gathering. This is a ceremony. A moment of harmony. A practice cultivated over centuries. It is shinoyu, the way of tea. Among samurai, the tea ceremony was not mere leisure, it was a path to discipline, clarity, and balance. It trained the mind as the sword trained the body. In a world shaped by war and loyalty, the quiet of the tea house became a sanctuary of stillness. Today, a few samurai arrive in silence. Their sandals are removed at the entrance, and they bow respectfully before entering the small, rustic tea room. The host, a retired warrior himself, welcomes them not with speech, but with presence. His movements are slow, deliberate, full of grace. The room is humble, no gold, no decoration, only natural textures and soft light. The walls are clay. The window is small. The alcove holds a single flower in bloom, freshly picked from the garden. Every element is chosen with intention. This space is called a chishitsu, and within it, time slows. The kettle begins to hum over the hearth. Steam rises gently. The sound is like a whisper, barely there, yet deeply grounding. The host begins the ritual, cleaning the tea bowl, scooping the green powdered matcha, whisking it into a delicate froth with a bamboo chasen. Each step is performed as though it matters greatly, because it does. There is no room here for haste or distraction. The tea ceremony teaches attention. Every bow, every turn of the wrist, every breath is part of the lesson. Among the guests sits a young samurai, newly appointed to his lord's retinue. He watches closely, learning through observation. His hand rests on his knee, still and respectful. His blade is left outside, for here, the sword holds no power. Only presence does. When the tea is offered, he bows low, accepting it with both hands. He turns the bowl slowly, as taught, before sipping. The flavor is earthy, bitter, and calming. It invites thought, but not chatter. In this silence, the mind is allowed to settle like snow in a forest. The host, once a warrior of many campaigns, speaks at last. His voice is soft, weathered by years. To master the sword, one must master the self. And to master the self, one must sit with stillness. He pours more tea. In this room, there is no enemy. Only the challenge of remaining present. The young samurai nods, understanding slowly dawning. This quiet ceremony is not an escape from the warrior's path, it is part of it. Just as one must train the body, one must cleanse the heart. Outside, the wind rustles the maple leaves. A crow calls in the distance. Inside, the moment is undisturbed. The samurai sip in silence. There is no rank here. No titles. Only humility, simplicity, and grace. The tea ceremony embraces four ideals. Wa, harmony. Kei, respect. Sei, purity. Jaku, tranquility. These are not abstract concepts. They are lived in the ceremony, moment by moment. Harmony with others. Respect for tools and space. Purity in movement. Tranquility in spirit. For the samurai, these are the same ideals found in martial training, in calligraphy, in poetry. The way, do, flows through them all. As the ceremony ends, the guests bow once more. They rise slowly, returning their sandals, stepping outside into the gentle light of afternoon. Their minds are quieter. Their breaths deeper. Even the weight of their armor feels lighter, not in body, but in spirit. The young samurai lingers a moment, bowing again to the host. His heart holds something new. Not a lesson taught, but a truth experienced. Later that evening, when he sharpens his blade under the lantern light, he recalls the hum of the kettle, the soft chime of bamboo, the touch of warmth in the tea bowl. He feels no urge to rush. He sharpens with care, as he was shown in the tea room, deliberate, present, respectful. The way of tea, like the way of the warrior, is not about conquest. It is about balance. It teaches that strength is best held by those who understand silence. That the sharpest mind is the one that listens. And that the finest blade is tempered by both fire and stillness. In the quiet corners of Japan's mountainous heartlands, where mists curl low over pine-covered ridges and hidden footpaths weave through dense forest, there exists another presence, unseen, unheard, but always watching. While samurai walk proudly in the open, there are those whose path lies in shadow, in silence, and in secrets. They are the shinobi. Whispered more than spoken. A name carried by the wind, never confirmed. The ninja was not a warrior of pomp and pageantry. He wore no brilliant armor. He rode no adorned horse. His skill was not in show, but in stillness. In the darkness between footsteps. In the breath between words. To most, they were rumor. To some, they were tool and threat. To themselves, they were necessity. In the Iga and Koga provinces, nestled between mountains and isolation, the ninja were born. Not from legend, but from struggle. These lands, often overlooked by powerful clans, developed their own codes, their own skills, their own way of surviving. And so, in moonlit courtyards and beneath slanted rooftops, the ninja practiced a craft both humble and precise. Ninjutsu, the art of stealth, deception, and intelligence. Unlike the samurai, whose code of Bushido centered on honor, loyalty, and noble combat, the shinobi's duty was not romantic. It was practical. Their aim was not glory, but completion. Not battle, but information. They scouted enemy terrain. Infiltrated castles. Delivered messages. Retrieved secrets. Opened gates in silence. And then vanished. Tonight, we follow one such figure. His name is not written in scrolls, and perhaps it never was. But his presence was felt in the quiet shifting of rice paper doors, the subtle movement of shadows along rooftops, the quiet crunch of a twig beneath a tabi-clad foot. He carries no banner. Only a small pouch of tools, grappling hook, smoke powder, bamboo tube, a short blade wrapped in cloth. His garments are dark, soft, and loose, quiet in motion. His eyes scan every movement of the wind. He approaches a samurai stronghold, built atop a wooded hill. He studies the path, the guards, the timing of their patrols. He waits for a cloud to pass over the moon before crossing the outer wall. His breath remains slow. Measured. Calm. He moves with the grace of falling leaves. Steps chosen as if listening to the ground before touching it. This is not an act of violence, but of balance. One mistake, and the mission fails. One sound too loud, and lives are lost. But he does not rush. He listens. He breathes. He becomes the night. Within the castle walls, he reaches his destination, a room filled with records. Strategic maps. Letters. He copies what is needed. Never steals. The art is in what is left behind, not taken. His tools leave no mark. He leaves the place exactly as it was. No fire. No clash of swords. Only the stillness of a mission complete. As dawn approaches, he vanishes again into the mist, slipping through the forest like a shadow returning to the hills. Behind him, the castle stirs unaware. His presence will be suspected, perhaps, but never confirmed. The samurai will raise their vigilance. But the shinobi has already moved on. He returns to a quiet village nestled beneath cedar trees. A place where children chase dragonflies and elders sip tea in silence. To them, he is a craftsman. A gardener. A quiet neighbor. His true identity is known only to a few. And that is enough. Unlike the samurai, the shinobi were never celebrated in their time. Their role was necessary, but controversial. Some called them cowards, others dishonorable. But those who truly understood the nature of conflict saw their value. The ninja were not rebels of the samurai code. They were reflections of a different truth, one where survival meant adaptation. One where silence was the greatest strength. Over time, the shinobi became legend. Tales of their powers grew fantastical, walking on water, disappearing in smoke, transforming into animals. But behind the stories were real people, real skills, real patience. They trained in nature, learning to hide in plain sight, to observe without being seen, to hear what was never said aloud. They practiced meditation, herbology, disguise, and escape. Their world was made of thresholds, between night and day, known and unknown, seen and unseen. And though their time would fade with the rise of centralized power under the Tokugawa shogunate, the spirit of the shinobi endured. In secret scrolls, in whispered stories, in the hearts of those who understood that power can take many shapes, and the quietest among them may be the most lasting. In a quiet corner of the estate, where plum blossoms drift like snowflakes and the koi pond reflects the late afternoon sky, a samurai sits with brush in hand. His armor is stored away. His sword lies respectfully beside him, untouched. Today, his battlefield is parchment. His weapon is ink. His purpose is expression. This is the quieter side of the warrior's life, one often forgotten in tales of steel and fury. But here, in the hush between duties, the samurai writes. Not with grand declarations. Not with long poems of glory. But with 3 simple lines. A haiku. 17 syllables. A moment captured in ink. It might speak of rain on bamboo. Or the cry of a crane in winter. Or the silence that follows the falling of a single leaf. Through this small window, the samurai connects to nature, to the fleeting passage of time, to the unspoken truths of the heart. A typical haiku might read. Still pond, no ripples. A frog leaps, breaking silence. Water sings again. So few words, and yet. A world contained within them. Samurai were not only warriors. They were students of poetry, tea, gardening, painting, and calligraphy. These pursuits were not distractions, but vital aspects of their discipline. To know how to wield a sword, one must also know when not to. To understand life, one must be quiet enough to hear it. The sword and the brush were siblings, both demanding patience, precision, and presence. Let us sit now with one such warrior, gently illuminated by the fading sun. His name is Masaki, and though he has served his lord in many campaigns, his heart belongs just as much to paper and ink as to armor and banners. Before him lies a scroll. A small inkstone rests in the crook of his left hand. He grinds a black ink stick in a circular motion, mixing it with water until it forms a dark, fragrant fluid. He dips the calligraphy brush carefully, testing the bristle's point. Then he breathes in. And writes. Each stroke is deliberate. Each character, formed not only with skill, but with stillness. Outside, a nightingale sings. The samurai's love of art was part of a broader philosophy. Influenced by Zen Buddhism, many warriors embraced the idea of impermanence, mujo, the truth that all things pass. The cherry blossom, so beloved, blooms briefly before it falls. The warrior, too, lives with that knowledge. And so, life must be appreciated not only in its grandness, but in its fleeting, delicate moments. A haiku captures such moments. Not to possess them, but to honor them. Masaki writes another. Armor by the door. Tea steam rises in still air. No war in this cup. He smiles. He pours himself tea, watching the tiny swirl of steam rise into the fading light. He thinks of his old master, long past. He thinks of the battlefields he's seen. And yet, here, in this silent hour, all of that seems far away. Only the present exists. Many samurai kept journals or composed death poems, short verses written when they sensed the end approaching. These poems were not mournful, but accepting. They were the final brushstroke of a life lived with intention. One such poem might read. As dew evaporates. And morning light begins. So too, I disappear. It is not despair. It is peace. At times, samurai also painted, brush landscapes of misty mountains, small birds on branches, monks walking alone through bamboo forests. With just a few strokes, they captured what could not be said. Their calligraphy too was admired, not only for what it said, but for the spirit with which it was written. Each character was a reflection of the writer's inner state. A hurried hand betrays restlessness. A steady hand reveals clarity. In ink, the samurai saw himself. These arts were part of their training, not as hobbies, but as discipline. They calmed the mind. They sharpened perception. They reminded the warrior that strength is not always found in force, sometimes, it lives in quiet reflection. To write a haiku, one must observe. To paint a crane, one must study its stillness. To brew tea properly, one must become part of the moment. This is how the samurai cultivated balance. The armor was stored. The sword polished and sheathed. And the path stretched long before him, winding through mist-covered valleys, forested slopes, and distant shrines. For many samurai, there came a time not for war, but for walking. Not toward battle, but toward stillness. Tonight, we follow a warrior on such a path, a pilgrimage not of conquest, but of the spirit. His name is Haruto. He has served well, fought bravely, and endured seasons of hardship. But as years passed, the pull of silence grew stronger. He found himself drawn not to the clamor of courts or the drills of training, but to the old mountain roads, those ancient trails used by monks, hermits, and pilgrims for centuries. The road is not paved. It is earthen and worn smooth by 1,000 footsteps. At times, it vanishes beneath fallen leaves or becomes no more than a ribbon beside a running stream. But Haruto walks without doubt. His straw sandals whisper against the soil. The only sounds: birdsong, wind, and the gentle clink of his water gourd. Pilgrimages in Japan were deeply spiritual journeys. Samurai would visit Buddhist temples or Shinto shrines seeking peace, penance, or reflection. Some traveled to sacred peaks like Mount Koya or Mount Hai, others to quiet monasteries hidden in the countryside. These journeys could take days, or months. Along the way, a samurai might encounter farmers, wandering monks, old storytellers, and children playing with wooden tops. Each face greeted with a respectful bow. Each moment, part of the larger rhythm of the road. Haruto carries only a few things. A small cloth bundle of rice balls and dried plum. A prayer slip inscribed with kanji. A walking stick carved with an inscription from his teacher. And a bell tied to his sash, a soft jingle marking each step, each breath. At dusk, he finds shelter beneath a wayside tree. He kneels, unwraps his rice, and eats quietly, watching the clouds change shape. Somewhere in the distance, temple bells ring, carried faintly on the wind. He smiles, knowing he is drawing closer. The monastery he seeks lies atop a wooded ridge, where cedar trees grow tall and straight like silent sentinels. It was once a place where warrior monks trained, but now it is home to just a handful of elderly monks and novices. Its entrance is simple, a wooden gate with a thatched roof, aged by years of rain and sun. When Haruto arrives, he bows. A novice greets him. No questions are asked. He is shown to a small room, bare save for a tatami mat, a pillow, and a candle. That night, he sleeps without dreams. The mountain wind rustles the trees outside. The scent of incense lingers faintly in the air. Life in the monastery moves gently. The day begins before dawn. A bell rings through the valley, awakening birds and monks alike. Haruto joins the morning meditation, sitting cross-legged before a stone garden raked with perfect care. He listens to the silence. Not to fill it, but to become part of it. Later, he helps carry water, chop wood, and prepare the simple meal of rice gruel and pickled vegetables. No one speaks unless needed. There is no chatter. No distraction. Only movement in mindfulness. In the evenings, the monks chant sutras by candlelight. Their voices blend like soft waves washing against old rocks. Haruto closes his eyes and lets the sound carry him inward, to a place where time softens, and breath becomes prayer. He does not stay long, only a week. But in that week, the world shifts. The restlessness in his chest eases. The tension in his hands loosens. And when he bows in farewell, his heart is still. Pilgrimage was a form of healing. It reminded the samurai that the world was vast and full of quiet wonder. That even beyond duty and discipline, there was beauty, in the way moss crept across stone, or in how the wind made bamboo trees sway in unison. On his return journey, Haruto walks slowly. He stops to speak with a traveling monk about the way of tea. He helps an old woman carry firewood up a hill. He writes a haiku beside a stream. Old path through the pines. My footsteps join the river. We do not return. He places the poem beneath a rock, letting it stay behind like a footprint of thought. When he finally reaches home, the village seems quieter than he remembers. Or perhaps, he is quieter. His sword is still sharp, his skills still intact. But now, they rest beneath a layer of calm, a still pool, undisturbed and less stirred. He continues to serve, but with new eyes. He walks slower. He listens more. And some evenings, he sits alone beneath the moon and recalls the sound of mountain bells in the fog. The sun that rose over feudal Japan for centuries had always shone upon the gleam of polished armor, the hush of bowed heads, and the quiet breath of watchful warriors. But no sun lingers forever at its peak. Eventually, the shadows lengthen. And so tonight, we arrive gently at the twilight of the samurai. It began not with a single clash of swords, but with the slow turning of time itself. For centuries, Japan had been held in the rhythm of Bushido, the way of the warrior. But the outside world was changing. Ships arrived on the shores. Foreign faces brought clocks, rifles, and trade treaties. The winds shifted. It was the 19th century. And the Tokugawa shogunate, the long-standing military government, was beginning to fray. For the samurai, these were days of uncertainty. They still held land. Still wore two swords at their side. Still carried pride in their lineage. But the power of the sword was no longer supreme. Gunpowder had arrived. So had steamships, newspapers, and new philosophies. The old ways began to flicker, like candlelight in the rising wind. Some samurai embraced the change. Others resisted. And many stood silently, watching the world they knew begin to dissolve. In 1853, four black ships sailed into Edo Bay. Commanded by Commodore Perry of the United States, these foreign vessels brought not war, but a demand. Open your ports. Trade with the world. Break centuries of seclusion. The shogunate, under pressure, agreed. And with this, the gate opened. Foreigners were no longer stories. They were present. And they brought with them a new order, Western clothing, Western weaponry, and Western ways of government. To many, it felt like an unraveling. To others, an awakening. The Meiji Restoration followed in 1868. The emperor, long a spiritual figurehead, was restored to power. The shogunate was dissolved. And with that, Japan began to modernize at extraordinary speed. Railways were laid. Schools were built. A conscripted army replaced hereditary warrior ranks. And slowly, the samurai class was abolished. Imagine, now, a warrior named Katsuro. He stands before a mirror in a modest home. His hair, once styled in the traditional Chanmage topknot, is now loose. The government has forbidden the wearing of swords in public. His daisho, long and short sword, hangs on the wall, not at his side. He has not fought in years. He reads the newspaper with unfamiliar characters. He hears factory bells instead of temple chimes. The fields where he once trained are now marked for a railway. Yet he does not feel anger. Only a deep, aching stillness. Katsuro remembers his grandfather's words. A warrior's strength is not in battle, but in balance. When the world turns, we must turn with it, gracefully. So he takes to teaching. He opens a small dojo, where he shares sword forms with children who will never carry them into war. His lessons are not for violence, but for discipline, posture, and presence. He bows before every session. His students bow back. The traditions continue, not as commands, but as quiet echoes of the past. Many samurai faced hardship. With the loss of their social status, some fell into poverty. Others joined revolts, hoping to restore the old order. The most famous of these was the Satsuma Rebellion, led by Seigo Takamori in 1877. Seigo, once a respected statesman, felt that the soul of Japan was being lost in its rush to modernize. He and his followers, clad in traditional armor, marched one last time. But they were defeated, overwhelmed by the imperial army's modern weapons and tactics. Seigo fell. Some say he died by his own hand. Others say he welcomed death with honor. In time, he was remembered not as a traitor, but as a symbol. A statue stands in Ueno Park in Tokyo, showing him not as a warrior, but as a man walking his dog, gentle and wise. Despite the formal end of the samurai, their spirit did not vanish. Bushido became more than a warrior code. It became a cultural memory, a moral compass embedded in Japanese values, loyalty, honor, discipline, humility. Former samurai became writers, teachers, scholars, artists. They helped shape a modern Japan that did not forget its roots, even as it embraced the future. And in the tea rooms, the dojos, the poetry scrolls, and the calligraphy ink, one could still feel the essence of the samurai. Back in his home, Katsuro lights a lantern. Outside, electric lamps now line the streets. Children run with paper kites and wooden yo-yos, unaware of the days when warriors rode on horseback through those very lanes. He sips green tea, reads a poem, and gazes at the two swords on his wall. They are no longer tools of war. They are stories, silent, dignified, patient. And he is their keeper. The twilight of the samurai was not a disappearance. It was a transformation. From sword to pen. From armor to robe. From battlefield to classroom. And in that gentle transition, they taught the world something rare. That honor is not tied to victory. That dignity does not require status. That the truest strength lies not in holding on, but in letting go with grace. In the quiet hours of the night, long after the wars have ceased and the clashing of blades has faded into distant memory, there remains something still, something soft and steady. A presence, more than a sound. A feeling, more than a fact. The samurai may have stepped down from their saddles, but their spirit continues to walk beside us. Tonight, we close our eyes and step gently through the afterglow of the age of the warrior. The castle stands still beneath moonlight. The armor rests beneath glass. The swords gleam not in battle, but in reflection. But the code, the way, the legacy, remains. In the heart of Japan's mountains, a small shrine sits tucked among whispering pines. There, an old monk traces his calligraphy brush across parchment. The strokes are slow, deliberate, precise, each one shaped by centuries of tradition. He writes words that once lived on the lips of samurai. Jie, righteousness. Rei, respect. Yu, courage. Meo, honor. Chugi, loyalty. The 7 pillars of Bushido. These words are not relics. They are still taught in homes and dojos, still whispered in the silence before a bow, still etched into the way people treat each other. Walk through a modern Japanese neighborhood at dawn. You might pass a boy sweeping the front step of his house, carefully, quietly, as his grandfather taught him. You might see a man standing in his garden, trimming bonsai trees with quiet attention. You might catch a glimpse of a kendo student exiting the dojo, holding his bamboo sword with both reverence and discipline. In these small, quiet acts, the way of the samurai endures. Samurai values did not vanish. They transformed into a cultural heartbeat. In martial arts, you still see their calm poise. In tea ceremonies, you feel their stillness and intention. In Japanese cinema and literature, their tales are told again and again, not just as warriors, but as people with souls full of conflict, honor, and poetry. Kurosawa's films. Haiku about fallen leaves. Ink paintings of lone swordsmen walking beneath cherry blossoms. All of these preserve the samurai in our shared imagination. The katana itself, a symbol of their spirit, still carries weight. Forged in fire, cooled in silence, sharpened with patience. A katana is not just a blade, it's a meditation. A ritual. A piece of art. Blacksmiths today continue the same centuries-old methods, folding steel, whispering prayers, balancing form and function. To hold such a sword is to hold the memory of countless hands. Hands that once protected villages, upheld justice, or wandered mountains in search of redemption. And so the legacy lives in paradoxes. The samurai are gone, and yet always present. Their age has ended, and yet their time continues. They lived for the sword, and yet taught peace. They fought wars, but their greatest victories were often within. Imagine a classroom in Kyoto. A young girl reads aloud from a book about Tomo Guzan, the fierce female samurai who rode into battle with bow and blade. The girl's voice is steady. Her eyes glow with quiet strength. She is not armored, yet she stands tall. That story, that spirit, is part of her. Or picture a young man in a Tokyo dojo, kneeling before practice. He bows deeply, eyes closed, mind focused. He will never march into a battlefield. But in his balance, in his breath, in his self-discipline, there is the echo of the samurai's grace. Even outside Japan, the samurai influence has traveled far. In Western philosophy, their honor code is studied. In films, their elegance inspires warriors, rebels, protectors. In business and leadership, books quote Bushido as a guide for clarity, courage, and purpose. It is said that the samurai could see beauty in every moment, even in a falling cherry blossom. Because it reminded them that all things are fleeting, and therefore, all things are precious. Their wisdom continues to guide those who seek meaning in the silence. And so we lie here now, on this quiet night, wrapped in the stillness of their story. We think not only of their battles, but of their peace. Not only of their armor, but of their mindfulness. Not only of their end, but of their echo. Their lives remind us that to live with honor is to live simply. That discipline can be calm, not cold. That power need not shout. It can walk barefoot through a temple gate. As the moonlight brushes the rooftops, and the wind sighs softly through bamboo groves, the age of the samurai feels both far away, and right beside us. Perhaps, in some way, we are all heirs to their silence. We bow, gently, to their memory. And in the hush of sleep, we carry their story forward. Not on our backs, but in our breath.